it one and all. High fly ball into right field. She is gone. He struck him out. 2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Blake Williams, AJ Gonzalez of DodgerBlue.com. Also, this isn't Daniel's broom, the famous broom of DodgerHeads, but we got, a perfect week, back-to-back sweep, so the broom is with us tonight. AJ, I'll start with you. I can't remember ever hopping on a Sunday night show in which the Dodgers did not lose since the last time I was on one of these shows. Pretty remarkable week of Dodgers baseball.
The Sunday curse is officially broken. That's 2 Sundays in a row. We can put that curse to bed. If we lose next Sunday, we can wipe this from the video, right?
Yeah, exactly. Blake, you got the bucket hat on. You're ready to celebrate, ready to heat this one up. 12 wins in 13 games. We feeling good down there?
Yeah, it's been a really good start to the month. There's not really anything you can complain about except that one loss to the Padres, but overall 12 and 13 is pretty good.
Yeah, people don't like my broom. They say my broom is too clean. We'll just go leave that one alone for a second, and we'll just move on here. But great show lined up for tonight, so thank you, everybody that's joining us live on YouTube, live on Facebook. Folks that are watching this or listening to this after the fact, I should say, on Apple, Spotify, or Google, thank you for joining us. And if you're watching this on YouTube as well, thank you so much. But great show tonight. We're going to talk pitching, which has kind of been the story. We're going to talk James Outman's surge. We're going to talk Michael Busch and what the heck the plan is with that guy who keeps torching down in the minor leagues. And we got a fun little food exercise. If I've got AJ and Blake on the last 5 or 10 minutes, we're going to do a little fast food item draft, which, look, if you've heard these two guys and their food opinions, I can assure you, you're going to want to stick around for that. But let's talk baseball to start, because that's why we are all here. Blake, you're our resident skeptic, so I'm going to come to you first, okay? The Dodgers have won 8 in a row. They've swept 2 series in a row. They're 8.5 up in the division. They've won 12 of our last 13. My question for you, Blake, is with the run that the Dodgers are on, are you buying that this version of the Dodgers has leveled up after the trade deadline? I'm not saying they're going to win 12 of their last 13, but do you think this team has maybe moved up a tier, moved up in the power rankings, if you will, based on what you've seen in the last 2 weeks?
They're definitely better than they were before the trade deadline. It's hard to say if they're going to keep getting that same production from Lance Lynn and Kike and Ahmed Rosario, like we can hope, and it looks to be trending that way. So I'm more optimistic than I was before the trade deadline, I'll say that. But on the other hand, you have to look at the teams they played. They played the A's, they played the Rockies, they played the Diamondbacks, and they played the Padres. Those are some of the worst teams in baseball. Now, it's still impressive because winning baseball games, no matter who you're playing, is hard. And winning 12 out of 13 is really impressive, no matter who your opponent is. But on the other hand, you're not playing the Orioles and Rangers and Braves. So we kind of have to temper expectations a bit. And I think it'll be interesting to see how they keep doing moving forward when they start to face some better competition. But it's encouraging, and it's really hard to be mad about winning 12 out of 13, no matter who you're playing.
So it took about 4 minutes and 30 seconds for those keeping track at home until Blake put an asterisk on the level of play we've seen from the Dodgers. And for the record, Blake, they took 4 out of 6 against Baltimore and Texas since the All-Star break. So I do want to point out that while not part of this streak, they have played really good teams. And 2 of the 3 teams you mentioned, again, they took 2 out of 3 from both of them on the road. So I think that's worth pointing out, Blake.
It's fair, but your question was related to if they've leveled up since the trade deadline. Yeah. And also, it's hard to put a big sample into 3 games and 6 games. There's so much randomness that can happen. I still think those are really good teams. And if the Dodgers played those teams 12 times, we wouldn't see them win 11 of them or whatever. It's just baseball. Not to take away from anything that they've done. I want to be clear about that. It's just, I do think it'll be interesting to see how they play moving forward once competition gets better too.
AJ, I think there is, I give Blake a hard time here, but there is some truth to when you beat the Rockies and you beat the A's, that's kind of the expectation. I do think the Padres and the Diamondbacks, even with some of the struggles that those teams have have had of late. Like, I don't know if they belong in the same category as the Rockies and the A's necessarily, but from your perspective, AJ, have you seen a level up from this group in these last 2 weeks, or are you writing it off as, hey, these are bad teams, they're playing, they did what they're supposed to do, but wake me up when they start beating some good teams?
I think Blake's cautious optimism is like perfectly fine. Like, yeah, it's hard to win baseball games against any professional team. I grant you the A's stretch the limit of that definition. But, the Rockies win some games. The Padres are nothing to sneeze at. They certainly have the talent to take you 3 out of 4. The Diamondbacks at the beginning of the year were the team to beat in the National League West. I don't know if any of us remember that. But we took it to them. And the Dodgers, not we. I don't play for the Dodgers. They took it to them. And I think that it's okay to say, okay, weaker teams, but scoreboard, baby. Like Alda Davis said, just win, baby.
Just win. Yeah. And I mean, look, the Dodgers, you play who's on the schedule. I always like to point out, we can look at the 12 of 13 and say, hey, they haven't played great teams. Well, look at the bigger sample size of 110 games, 115 games, whatever we're at, and recognize that the Dodgers are third best team in all of Major League Baseball across that stretch. They're gaining on the Braves, who for the longest time, Blake felt like they were in a completely different league and a completely different tier. And yet now, I don't know what it is right now, if it's 3.5 or 4.5, 5.5, somewhere in there, the Dodgers sort of gaining on them. What would you need to see, Blake, when we look at the schedule coming up? I know the Dodgers have some tough opponents coming up. I mean, is it just as simple as, okay, Milwaukee comes to town. You and I talked about them earlier on a video this week and the pitching staff that they've got. Now they're going to see Burns on Thursday and then Miley and Hauser. So they miss Woodruff. Then they've got Miami and Cleveland, Boston. I mean, Arizona. Like the rest of this month is a bunch of teams that aren't exactly great. We don't get the Braves until September. That'll be a fun one. But like, what do the Dodgers need to do, Blake, in your estimation, to maybe convince you a little bit more that this is real?
I think I just want to see their pitching play well versus good opponents more, because throughout all the year, their biggest complaint with the team was they don't have pitching. Their starting pitcher has been bad. They've dealt with injuries. They've just had so many issues on the bullpen and the rotation. So it's been really nice to see them perform well against bad teams, to be fair. But I think we just need to see some more consistency out of them. Make sure Kershaw stays healthy, make sure Julio keeps pitching well, keep seeing Gonzalez pitch well after his last start. So if their rotation can keep it up for longer, I'll start to have more faith in them. But I just want to see how they perform versus better opponents.
Yeah. AJ, is that it for you? Is pitching kind of the sort of the key indicator you're watching, to use some like stock market terminology here? But is that kind of the indicator that you're keeping an eye on that's sort of going to be the barometer from here on out on how you feel about this team?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Blake nailed it. Like, the offense has not been the problem for this team at all from the beginning of the year. They, for the most part, aside from some boomer bust tendencies, they score runs. The pitching has been the question mark. This is the first year in, I don't know, in the last 10 that we've, that the Dodgers have been on this run, that I can remember where the pitching wasn't in the top 5 in ERA and every other metric. So if the couple of guys they acquired, particularly Lynn, and getting the guys back like Kershaw, hopefully we get this version of Urias that we've been getting. If those guys start to perform, the bullpen does well, then I take it more seriously.
Yeah, I think it's fair. It is worth noting, over the last 30 days, the Dodgers have the third best ERA in all of Major League Baseball. So for what it's worth there, and we're going to get into pitching. And I do want, just to wrap up this stretch, and I think we're all saying this, but I want to emphasize this. On one hand, it is fair to say, hey, they beat the Rockies, they beat the A's, they beat the Diamondbacks, who have lost a million games in a row. They beat even the Padres, who are scuffling. On the flip side, I think we are also all saying to win 12 out of 13 against literally anybody is something that is impressive. Like, if I had asked all of us before this stretch, we probably would have said, hey, you need to go like 9-4 over this stretch. They went 12-1. So that's an impressive thing, and that's worth acknowledging, even if we're not saying, hey, they're the greatest team in the history of the world. And look, I mean, we know where all of us stand. I've been more optimistic about this team from the get-go. I think Blake has kind of been maybe the most cautious of the group, and AJ probably somewhere in the middle. So just something to keep an eye on. But let's talk about that pitching, because that has been the key in this stretch of winning 12 of their last 13. In the last 13 games, they are allowing 2.9 runs per game. Again, against some teams that aren't very good, but that's worth saying. In the last 5 games, they allowed just 6 runs total. AJ, the question I wanted the three of us to kick around is, as we think about the pitching and kind of how it has been the key to some of this success, is there an arm that jumps out at you as somebody to say, hey, this is somebody to watch. This is somebody that has caught my eye. Could be a big name, could be a small name, could be somebody who's pitching well, pitching poorly. But is there one name that jumps out to you among Dodger pitchers of late?
Julio. Don't look now, kids, but Julio's ERA plus. I know that that's kind of an archaic stat for some people, but it's back at league average of 100. He's pitching better over his last 3 starts, and we include today's in that. He has, let me do math here. That's 13 plus 5. That's 18 innings. He's given up 3 earned runs and struck out over 20.
Yeah,
that's nothing to sneeze at. I know. The Rockies are not exactly murderer's row, and he did give up a very unfortunate 2-run home run today. But his location's been better. His movement has been a little better. I didn't look at the spin rate numbers, but I would hope to see that they are up a tick. But location, movement, and just his overall attitude. Some pitchers pitch with a little bit of dog in him on the mound. He's had that attitude back, and maybe that's an effect of the results, and I grant that. But the results are there. I don't care if it was the Braves or the Rockies. And I also use that, say that because he's the guy they're going to need, or we have no big game starters after Kershaw and a couple of guys who are untested.
Yeah.
So
Laura, I see the super chat. We're going to get to your super chat in just a second. Let's wrap up this conversation on Julio. Blake, his line today, 7 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned, no walks, ties a career high with 12 strikeouts. I know all 3 of us are big kind of what's going on behind the box score. 22 whiffs today, which is an outrageously high number, especially for Julio. He's in the 29th percentile for whiffs this season, but 22 whiffs today. Last outing, he had a 29% whiff rate against the Diamondbacks, which was also good. He has said that he's feeling like himself mechanically for maybe the first time all season. He feels like all 3 pitches are dialed in as well. Blake, are you kind of buying this now 3 starts in a row that Julio has started to look like himself again?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think any of us expected him to be as bad as he was all season. It was hard to expect him to just drop off a cliff like he did for the first half. So I think we all expected some rebound there, especially with the home run numbers, which he still allowed some homers, and I think that's still a bit of a concern there, but he's definitely looking a lot better. And if he can be like a number 2 type or even get back to being an ace for the team, that's a massive boost to the rotation and better than any trade they could have made. And that's kind of what we were all just hoping for, like him getting back on track and solidifying the rotation. So it'll make me a lot more optimistic about the team if he can stay producing well, but we'll see.
Yeah, he's due to match up with Yuri Perez against the Marlins later this week, so that should be a fun little matchup. Let's get to Laura's question. Laura, we appreciate the super chat. As always, we'll stop what we're talking about to talk about what you want to talk about if you want to leave us a super chat, so thank you. She asks, which pitcher or reliever coming back from injury will have the biggest impact on this season? Blake, there's a handful. Daniel Hudson could be in this group. Blake Trinan could be in this group. Walker Buehler could be in this group. Ryan Pepio, I suppose. Michael Grove, all guys who are currently injured that could potentially come back. So, Blake, I'll give you the first shot at this. Which pitcher who could come back from injury will have the biggest impact down the stretch?
It's hard to say because it depends who's actually going to be healthy. If Daniel Hudson comes back, it's probably him, but he seems to have pretty long odds to come back. Trinan seems to be more optimistic about him coming back, so he could be a huge leverage piece, but he hasn't pitched in so long, it's hard to project how he's going to do. I mean, maybe I'll go with the sleeper here and say Walker Buehler comes back mid to late August or September and he performs really well. They just have so many upside options. It's just hard to project who's actually going to be healthy and how they're going to look after missing so much time.
Yeah.
But I guess to make the long answer short, I'll say Trinan is my pick here.
Okay. So, AJ, the updates that we've gotten over the past week are that Walker Buehler's not going to be ready by his September 1st sort of pronouncement from months and months ago, but he is expected back probably mid-September. It sounds like Blake Trinan is maybe a tick behind him. And then I think it was Fire Eisen had a setback, so it doesn't sound like anybody's expecting Fire Eisen to come back. As you mentioned, Daniel Hudson may be more doubtful of the group. AJ, of those guys, is there somebody that jumps out to you as saying, hey, I think this guy, of all those options, will have the biggest impact?
Call me an old school romantic, but I would love to see Buell Dog come and bring his October magic. And obviously, we're not looking for him to start and pitch 7 innings. He's going to be on a very severe innings and pitch count. And, like, that's okay because the Dodgers weren't expecting to have him back this year for the most part until that first update, at a couple of months back. If he can come, like, best case scenario, he could be like the Julio of 2020.
Yeah.
Maybe pitch a couple innings in relief, or if they're really going to get spicy as an opener kind of deal, maybe during a Kershaw start, like I'll get even spicier, or any other lefty that they have to kind of mess with the splits. But just seeing him in the bullpen at all would be, I think, monstrous for the Dodgers, both in the scoreboard and just in like the team chemistry and the fire. Like bringing him back, having him back is going to be a big boost, and for the fans.
Yeah, no, I agree. Buehler would be my pick just because I do think, based on his determination and the updates we've gotten, I think he has the best chance of coming back. And if he does come back, whether it's, 2 or 3 innings with Yarbrough, who we're about to talk about here in a second, as the piggyback, those two make sense. If I had to zag slightly, I would throw Ryan Pepio out there. I've said for a couple of years that if they ever just put Ryan Pepio in the bullpen and he's throwing upper 90s with his changeup, that he could be a real weapon in the bullpen. Pepio today, 6 2/3, allows 1 hit, no runs, no walks, and 11 strikeouts. That's on just 90 pitches. He had a perfect game through 6 innings at AAA. So he was dialed in. The pitch count is up to 90. So I'd go Buehler 1, but if I wanted to zag and throw an interesting name out there, I'd go Ryan Pepio. So Laura, thank you for the super chat on that one. Blake, you said you want to add one more name, so throw one more name at us.
I'm going to throw Shelby Miller's name in there, and I think that might be my actual pick. He started a rehab assignment, I think, a week ago or something like that, and he was a guy the Dodgers really liked, and he was pitching pretty well before he got hurt, so I feel like he might be the safest bet to come back and actually make an impact.
Yeah, Shelby Miller's an interesting one. I'm glad you mentioned him because I did remember seeing that and thinking like, oh, we haven't heard that name before. 2.4 ERA in 30 innings pitched so far this season. The flip side to him was walks were a massive issue, 5.5 walks per 9, and the expected numbers didn't like him. FIP was 4.5, expected ERA 4.26. But to your point, it's like a lot of guys we might talk about in the bullpen. At some point, you just look at the ERA and say, you know what, we'll take the good ERA because we got a lot of guys where the ERA isn't that good. So Shelby Miller's a good choice there, Blake. Good addition there. Let's circle back to the conversation we were having in the pitching over the last couple of weeks. Blake, who's a name that you want to highlight as somebody who has maybe been key to this success and somebody to keep an eye on moving forward?
Yeah, so Ryan Yarbrough is kind of the surprise of the deadline. He was pretty good with the Rays a few years ago, and then he's kind of bounced around a bit and was kind of like average with the Royals. But with the Dodgers, he's thrown 7.1 innings.
Yeah,
has a 1.23 ERA, 7 strikeouts, and a .55 WHIP. So he's been incredible, and he's kind of fun to watch pitch, like striking guys out with his 87 mile per hour fastball. And he's providing innings in the bullpen and giving them relief that they needed, just innings, someone who can go out there and not kill the bullpen every time out. So
yeah,
it's been fun to watch him. He's kind of funky with his delivery and his pitches, and he's looked really good.
He's kind of the perfect piggyback guy, which is just interesting because he's a lefty and the way they've deployed him, I think is an interesting one. But I like the way that he fits alongside some of the other guys that they have. That's interesting. I was looking at some of his numbers against the Rockies: 3 innings, 1 hit, 4 strikeouts. He had 18 swings against him and got 8 whiffs. 44% whiff rate. He allowed 0 hard hit balls in that game. So pretty impressive stuff from Yarbrough. AJ, anything jump out to you? I mean, he's the guy that when we were doing our live show, that was the trade that came across like right at 4, maybe 4:05 or whatever time it was. I screwed up the time and everyone is like, what are they doing there? Some people were saying they got the wrong reliever from the Royals even. But what have you made of Ryan Yarbrough so far, AJ?
He has looked pretty good. And like they were like you guys were mentioning, he doesn't throw hard, and that's fine. It's worked. You piggyback a guy who throws lefty and tops out at 87, 88, and piggyback him with Ryan Pepio, who throws 95, 96 with a filthy changeup. Not only are you helping negate some splits, which the Dodgers historically either love or hate doing, I can't figure it out. But if you get 2 or 3 innings from a guy like Yarbrough who's throwing 88, Pepio's going to look like Nolan Ryan throwing 96. So you at least get 1 inning or 1 time through the order where the hitters are a little off put by that speed. And I know that that's a little pie in the sky, but it has been effective for some teams. And I could see the Dodgers doing stuff like that, if only because this year they can't just do what they would typically want to do with their pitching. They're going to have to do it a little more like the way they did when they won 2020. Guys like Gonsolin and May, who were much younger, they'd throw out for 3 or 4 innings, and then bullpen at the rest. You get a guy like they'd bring out like Julio out of the bullpen. There's nothing wrong with the way that they did that. I mean, it won a World Series, so I could see them doing something like that. Yarbrough's got good enough stuff to, I think, use him in a playoff game, and I wouldn't mind seeing it.
Yeah, and I mean, when I was talking about piggybacking, it's the righty-lefty. They've got all the young arms, Pepio, Grove, Sheehan, who are all righties. But then it's the velocity, like you said. If you tell Michael Grove, hey, you're going to pitch the first 2 innings, and he comes out and he's throwing 97, 98 because he's just emptying the tank. Yarbrough comes in topping out at 87. That's weird for a couple of innings. And then you go back to the bullpen, and it's the Gratteralls of the world who are throwing 100 miles an hour. Like, you're just going to mess with guys if Grove can get you 1 time through the order, or Sheehan or whoever, that kind of thing. So something to keep an eye on. Speaking of the bullpen, I'll throw my name out there, and I've seen a couple people in the chat mentioning it. And it's just a name that I haven't heard mentioned all that much, and that's Ryan Brazier. We might need to start talking a little bit more about Ryan Brazier. Since July 5th, he's made 16 appearances, has allowed just 5 hits and 1 earned run over that stretch. He has a 1.21 ERA in 22 1/3 innings with the Dodgers. So the production is incredible. Now, the hard part with Brazier is he's got the Brusdar Gratterall disease, which means he can't strike anybody out for some reason. 7.66 strikeouts per 9. So effective and consistently effective. Again, we're at 22 innings, which for a reliever is not a small sample size. Blake, what have you made of Ryan Brazier? Like, are you terrified of the strikeout numbers, or is this guy a back end of the bullpen guy that the Dodgers might be able to count on?
I'm kind of in the middle there. I'm going to pull the Scott route here. I wouldn't really trust him a ton in high leverage just because he's not going to get strikeouts. Like, if you throw him up against the Braves and he has to face Ronald Acuna and Matt Olson, I'd be pretty terrified there.
Yeah.
But he's been a really solid reliever. It's hard to have any complaints about him. Like, I think he's a good middle reliever, like taking over the Phil Bickford role, where you can get innings out of him when you need them and occasionally throw him into a high leverage spot. So for free, which what they got him for, he was designated for assignment and they claimed him. Like, you can't be mad about that at all. And he's really helped solidify the bullpen.
AJ, are you in the same boat? Sort of like, hey, in the 7th inning, fine, but not in the 8th, please?
I think so. He has a good ground ball rate. He's not getting the ball up in the air a lot, but like Blake said, you tell me Ryan Brazier's going to be on the mound throwing against Acuna and Olsen, and I'm saying every prayer, good luck charm in the book.
But that's, but other than Evan Phillips, there's probably like 5 relievers in all of Major League Baseball that you feel good about against those 2 guys, for the record.
No, there are 0 really, but yes.
Blake, I got to ask, because we got this in the chat. Lieutenant, I don't know how to pronounce this speech, just said Blake would be uneasy about Eric Gagne. We know how you feel about relievers. Peak Eric Gagne, would we have been okay with him?
I think I probably could have settled in on having Eric Gagne at the back of the bullpen, but overall, just keep relievers away from me. I don't trust them.
My weird baseball take, and I'll just throw this out there because it's an Eric Gagne take, is that if I could pick any pitcher from all of Major League history, and I needed to get one out, and my life depended upon it, I want peak on steroids Eric Gagne over any other pitcher in all of Major League history. Blake, am I crazy?
Probably not. I mean, Mariano Rivera is an option up there, but like even he blew saves in the World Series, so I mean, Eric Gagne is a good choice there.
AJ, any complaints?
No, and I'll do you one better. I don't think he gets enough love because of the last few years, but like, give me 2016 Kenley, honestly.
Okay. Wow, Kenley, there we go. I'm sure that the chat will love a Kenley Jansen mention. We have just stirred the pot a little bit, so I appreciate that.
Go to their go to his BREF page. Go to his BREF page.
Hey, look, it's sometimes our memory of Kenley Jansen may be colored by some of the later memories rather than Pete Kenley. So
For sure.
I'm with you. I see some nominations there: Randy Johnson, Bob Gibson, Sandy Koufax. So again,
you're just ignoring Ronald Belisario's name on there.
I'm sorry.
Apologies. He was elite that one year.
Yeah, he was. There you go. I'll leave that one there. Sticking with Eric Gagne, though. Thank you for the nomination on Belisario. I'm going to stick with Gagne.
Chris Hatcher.
Jeez Louise, just fastballs down the middle.
He had good stuff.
Let's get to some other honorable mentions as far as Dodger pitchers of late. Let's talk Tony Gonsolin. I think I saw something. He'd allowed 4 or more runs in 7 of his last 9 starts. He gives up a home run on the very first pitch of the game. And I think everybody's head was in the exact same place, which was, here we go again, if not a far more vulgar version of that. But afterwards, he allows just 2 hits, no walks, no runs, 6 strikeouts. He gets 30% whiff rate. He said he felt good about the bullpens leading up to that one. AJ, with Julio, we're talking about 3 consecutive starts that are encouraging. With Gonsolin, we're literally talking about one against the Rockies. But was there anything that you saw from Gonsolin in that outing that maybe makes you believe that the rest of the season might not look like the season we've already seen from Tony?
It's probably unfair that I say this because I just said yes about like Julio, but and in reality, Tony and Julio have the same effect of like their FIP is always higher than their actual ERA. But with Tony, there's just been something that hasn't been there. And he pitched pretty well yesterday against a team that's not great.
Yeah.
Let me say it like this. I have optimism based on that outing, but even a little more cautious optimism than I do with Julio.
Blake, you in the same boat?
Kinda. I think he can be fine moving forward for the rest of the year. It looked like he maybe kind of got past his fatigue issues a little bit, and hopefully that was kind of helping him. And previously, it was probably what was holding him back. But I still think he's probably best suited for a bullpen role come the playoffs. I don't think he's going to be one of their top 4 starters. And if you let him pitch an inning or two, just using his fastball and splitter, like I think he could be really effective in that role.
Yeah.
But for the time moving forward, I think he can be like a league average type starter, which is really all they need.
So right now, Blake, if it's Kershaw, Julio, and Lance Lynn as kind of your 1, 2, and 3 starters, in the 4th option, you could go Gonsolin, you could go Bobby Miller, you could go Emmett Sheehan, you could go piggyback with Ryan Yarbrough. Like, how would you deploy that 4th spot if it were up to you, Blake?
Right now, it's Bobby Miller. We'll see how Buehler does if he's able to come back, but I think Miller has earned the spot, and he probably has the best stuff to succeed in that role.
And are you piggyback situation? Hey, Bobby, go get me 3 or 4 innings, and then Yarbrough's going to come in? Or, hey, Bobby, here's the ball. If we can get 6, we'll plan for that.
I think you just give him the ball, but like you be cautious about it. Like probably second time through the order, once he finishes that, you get the relievers starting to like stretch and toss. But I wouldn't like plan on limiting him to 3 innings because he has the kind of stuff where he could just dominate for 6 innings, and you don't want to lose that potential.
AJ, same. You agree there?
100%.
Yeah, I think I agree too. I probably would consider a piggyback situation, but maybe that's like 4 innings, that kind of thing. Like let him get through the lineup twice, and then that's pretty much it. Unless we're talking like he's allowed 2 base runners and has 8 strikeouts or something like that. But I agree. But I would say, like, look, Tony Gonsolin has rattled off stretches of pitching where he's been really, really good. And I don't think it's outside the realm of possibilities. I would be surprised if Gonsolin found his way into the top 3 of the Dodgers rotation. But if you told me they needed a 4th starter come the NLCS and the Dodgers are in it and they handed the ball to Gonsolin, like, that would be a 3.5 on the scale of 1 to 10 surprise for me. So I'm not saying it's likely. I'm with you guys. I think Bobby Miller would have the edge, but if Gonsolin was pretty good from here on out, and ended up being the guy that they trusted in that spot with Yarbrough coming off the back, I wouldn't be shocked, I guess would be my answer. AJ, would you be shocked? Like, are we at a point with Gonsolin that you would be shocked if he was handed the ball to start a playoff game, assuming, health?
I would be a little surprised. I think I'd be more terrified than anything.
Okay.
But he does have some experience.
Yeah.
And he to be fair to Tony this year notwithstanding, like the first half of last season, he was really, really good.
Yeah.
So I would be a little surprised, but I don't know that I would balk at it that much.
Okay. All right. The other starter I want to mention here is Clayton Kershaw, and we got to talk about him because he returned, having not pitched since June 27th, made no real rehab starts, just some simulated games and bullpens and that kind of thing. 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned, no walks, 4 strikeouts. Blake, this felt kind of like a classic Kershaw sort of night when he didn't have his best stuff. And I say that because he only got he got almost no swings and misses, even though he instituted a new changeup, gets 4 strikeouts, but limits the hard contact, only 4 hard hit balls all night, and doesn't allow more than 1 run. Like, it just felt like a classic Kershaw. He's not dominant on this night, but it was plenty good for the Dodgers. Give me your scouting report of what we saw from Kershaw after almost a month and a half off.
Yeah, it kind of felt like a rehab start for him because he didn't end up going to make one.
Is that a shot at the Rockies, just to be clear here?
I mean, you can interpret that however you want, but I don't think they would have put him up against the Braves as the first time out kind of thing. So I think it's fair to maybe say the Rockies were a bit of a rehab kind of start for him, but his stuff wasn't amazing. As he said, he didn't get many swings and misses, and he just kind of had to battle, which it was good to see that he was able to, and he was able to get through 5 innings, which was a positive. It's just moving forward, we have to see, like, is he going to stay healthy? Is the shoulder pain not going to start to come back? So that's my main concern with him. Like, outside of the injury, I don't think anyone has any concerns about Kershaw. It's just that injury is a big if.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the fact that he's back in the middle of August is on one hand good. And on the other hand, it's like, well, maybe we should have held him out for a few more weeks and just, put less mileage on him because we need him so badly come September and October. I should say October and November. AJ, what did you make? Anything jump out to you about Kershaw's 5-inning sort of return to the rotation?
Yeah, like you and Blake said, it had the feeling of a rehab start. He was using a split change, which we've known over the years that Kershaw is really reluctant to incorporate his changeup. Granted, this is a new one, so he was testing it out. But where do you test it out? You test it out in a rehab start against a Rockies team who has only 1 player with an ops plus in their starting 9 over 100, and I think that's like 102.
There you go.
So yeah, like Kershaw himself said, like Blake reiterated, he himself said he didn't have his best stuff. But he only did simulated games. He didn't do a rehab start. I think that was a nice way to do it, and the Dodgers got a W out of it. So,
yeah. No, I'm with you. The other pitching news that we got to mention before we move on to Outman and Michael Busch is that Yency Almonte and Joe Kelly were both placed on the injured list the last couple of days. Almonte leaves the game with what appeared to be a knee injury. It later comes out that he has a sprained MCL. Put on the injured list. Dave Roberts had said they're hoping that he is only on there for the minimum, although sprained MCL to me sounds like way more than a couple of weeks. Victor Gonzalez came up to take his spot, and then Joe Kelly placed on the injured list today just before the game. So sudden and unexpected, they didn't even have time to make a corresponding move ahead of the game. That was with right forearm inflammation. Backdated to August 10th. Again, they're hopeful that it's the minimum. Joe Kelly and Yency Almonte basically said they could still pitch. The Dodgers decide to put them on the injured list. They also said with Kelly that they're going to try and stay away from back-to-back nights with him once he's healthy. So that's not exactly what you want to hear about a guy that all of a sudden we were starting to count on as like the second best reliever out there in the bullpen. AJ, this is a complicated one because Almonte on the whole has not been great. I've kind of pointed out that over the last month or two, he's actually been really good, sub-3 ERA, and like 90% of his outings have been scoreless. Joe Kelly has come over and been incredible. The velocity has ticked up and nobody's touched him. So what do you make of these? Like, how big of a deal is it that here we are in the middle of August and two of maybe the guys that you hoped would be in the playoff bullpen are both headed to the injured list, with the Dodgers' track record of injuries always seeming to take longer than we're used to?
I would have zero concern if Almonte's injury wasn't a sprained MCL. Like I that seems like a much, like, the Dodgers have this track record with being maybe less than completely honest about the reason that people go in the IL. But that's like not a sprained MCL is not like the phantom IL move that you would hope to see a guy like that. Like if it was some kind of like arm inflammation or forearm tightness, then I would go, okay, they're resting him up. It's a long season. Same with Joe Kelly. But given that it's a sprained MCL, that does give me pause. It gives concern.
Yeah.
But if the result of those IL stints are that Almonte and Kelly are fresh for playoff time, as long as there's enough time to get them, like a couple of rehab appearances, I'm not too concerned. As long as those injuries really are not as serious as we hope they aren't.
Blake, there's 18 more days in the month of August. These guys were just placed on the 15-day IL. Joe Kelly's was backdated. Are either of these guys in a Dodgers uniform before the end of August?
No, I don't think so.
No chance.
I was looking up sprained MCL recovery times, and for a grade 1, it's about 3 to 4 weeks generally. So 15 days is half of that, basically. So, like, I don't really see Almonte coming back sooner like they're predicting. I don't think he'll miss the entire season or anything like that. I do think he'll be back. It's just probably going to be a longer timeline. Joe Kelly's gives me more concern because it is an arm injury, and as we know with arm injuries, they're always tricky, and the worst thing pitchers can deal with, especially the forearm area, is always concerning. Oftentimes lead to Tommy John surgery and stuff like that. But Kelly did experience that same injury earlier in the year, and he was able to return. So hopefully it's just kind of like actually inflammation and he can come back sooner than later. But it still gives me some kind of pause there, especially with him dealing with it for the second time instead of just being the first time.
Yeah, and look, nobody is more quick to propose a conspiracy theory about how they're just resting guys. But when Yency Almonte hurts his knee in the middle of a game twice and then gets pulled with 2 outs in the 9th of a blowout, that tells you that something actually happened. And when Joe Kelly gets put on the injured list just before a game starts, so much so that they don't even have a corresponding move lined up, it tells you that both of these are real injuries. And so I'm with you, Blake. I would say no chance either of these guys is back by the end of August. I would be shocked if a Dodger ever spent the minimum amount of time on the injured list and if Dave Roberts was ever accurate about what he said. So hopefully with, plenty of time left in the season goes through, I think the last game is like the beginning of October. So we've got some time. We've got about a month and a half, 6 or 7 weeks. So there's time for these guys to come back, get back built up and audition for the playoff roster. But it's not infinite amount of time. And especially like you said, for knee injuries and forearm injuries, those aren't, that's not what you want to hear. Let's talk offensive. We've been spending so much time on the pitching. Let's talk about a couple of young guys on the offensive side. And we'll start with James Outman. I don't know if I've ever seen a more bipolar player than James Outman, who's the best player in the league for the first month. Maybe, well, I can't say the worst player in the league because he's got a couple of those on his team, but one of the worst players in the league for a couple months in the middle. And then he's back to being like the best player in the league again. Since July 4th, he's slashing 326 batting average, 475 on base, and a 533 slug with 5 homers, 6 stolen bases. How about this? He's walking 19.5% of the time compared to a 23% strikeout rate over that stretch. He's got a 181 weighted runs created plus. He has said he feels more relaxed. I mean, other numbers I'll throw out you. Defensively, 91st percentile and outs above average, which is amazing. But Blake, maybe the things that are most encouraging to me on the season, 87th percentile for walk rate, 75th percentile for chase rate. What I love about Outman and what has stood out to me almost more than the actual batted ball success of the last month is his approach. It is so good. He does not swing at bad pitches. He takes walks. He's shortened his swing. I've been so impressed because this is a guy that early on, like everyone was like, yeah, well, we kind of expected the regression. Wasn't a huge prospect. The bat wasn't really going to come around, yada, yada, yada. The fact that he went through a 2-month stretch that was about as bad as it could possibly get and has come out the other side like this for now over a month, I'm blown away. I mean, even as somebody who was high on James Outman, Blake, this has surprised me how quickly and how strongly he's bounced back.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of credit to how hard he's been working, and then the Dodgers coaching and player development. Like, they gave trust in him and they kept working with him, and it's paying off now.
Yeah.
And I think there is truth to him just being more comfortable. Like, it's hard to play Major League Baseball, let alone as a rookie. And he kind of just lit the world on fire, and no one could get him out. And then pitchers adjusted, and it was up to him to adjust. And he made those adjustments. And he's not striking out as much, which is, like, I think was our biggest concern with him.
Yeah.
Like, even when he was going well, he had a lot of strikeouts. So it's good to see him like actually making those adjustments and getting back and figuring it out. But I'm a little disappointed. You seem to have forgotten about Yasmani Grandal as that player who's the best player for a month and then the worst player for a month. We got Outman and Grandal up in those categories.
I loved Grandal. I had a weird soft spot for Yasmani Grandal. So we'll. I know he's not always the most popular player in Dodgers land. AJ, like I said, to me, it's almost more the approach than the results that I've been impressed by. What stood out to you about James Outman, especially over this last 6 weeks or so?
Yeah, he's taking more walks. He's taking more pitches, and he seems to be seeing the ball, which, like, that's no small thing. That's hard to do, especially for rookies who are, you know, like usually they're pitch hunting. He's just trying to have a good at bat, and it's nice to see that. It's nice to see him hitting balls in the gap. He's driving them into the outfield, and I think he just looks more comfortable. You know, there's nothing better than facing failure. You know, like once you realize that you can fail and come back, a guy like Outman, he's going to be trouble for everybody else.
Yeah, and again, the defense picking up as well. I mean, we knew he had the athleticism to play center field. He hadn't played a ton of it, and so the level of amount of success that he has had, the jumps that he is getting, and there was a great article, I think, on The Athletic about sort of the work that he's put in with Clayton McCullough and kind of his ability to get jumps and that kind of thing. And you've seen it on the field, has been great. So let's talk one other hitter, not a guy at the major league level, but of all the people that we get comments on our videos, maybe the most commented, asked about person, and that's Michael Busch. And the question I want to ask is, what's the plan? I'll throw this at you. 10 home runs in his last 19 games. In his last 19 games, he has 30 hits and 10 walks. So he's reaching base twice a game. He's hitting a home run every other night. His OPS for the season is over 1,000. He's hitting .318. He has 23 home runs in just 82 games, a .428 on base, a .610 slug in a massive sample size of 330 at bats. Blake, what are they like? What are they supposed to do? JD Martinez apparently back, able to pinch hit today. What do you do with Michael Busch? If you got put in charge of the Dodgers tomorrow, Blake, what would you do with Michael Busch?
I think first I'd go to Oklahoma and confirm that Michael Busch is actually a real person and not just some guy the Dodgers are making up. So just to have like another top prospect, maybe he's facing Danny Duffy down there or something. But they need to find a way to get him on the roster. Like, I don't know how they can essentially do it, like take away some playing time from Miguel Rojas, maybe give Ahmed Rosario some more time at short and play Busch at second. I know they started working with him in the outfield a bit more, so maybe you can start mixing him in there, but his bat is just too good and you need to give him a chance. Like, they had high expectations for Miguel Vargas and they gave him a huge runaway to prove that he was going to be their future. So I think it's only fair to see if Michael Busch can kind of do that same thing and get that same kind of runaway to see what he can do.
Yeah.
It's hard because you have so many good hitters right now and everything's going well and you don't really want to mess with that. But like that potential he can provide if you get another great bat in the lineup for the postseason, I think it's worth exploring that. So I would call him up as soon as I possibly could. He deserves a chance, and he's proving there's nothing left for him to do at AAA besides hit homers every game. So
Yeah.
I just don't see the point in keeping him down there.
AJ, let me throw a crazy idea at you. And I think I agree with everything Blake said. I think the question that I would ask everybody is whose spot on the active roster does he take? Because Yanni Hernandez is not up on the major league roster. Like that sort of floating guy who never plays, that it isn't there. So I'm skeptical that until rosters expand in a few weeks, I don't think Michael Busch is coming up unless somebody goes on the injured list. But the name that I would throw at you that I think if I were in charge would have to be worried about his playoff spot is not Austin Barnes. Don't worry. If you're thinking I'm going Austin Barnes here, as much as I want to, I'm not. It's Chris Taylor. If I was Chris Taylor, I would be worried about my role on the postseason roster. And here's why. He is clearly behind Ahmed Rosario and Kike Hernandez in the utility man rankings. Like when they need a third baseman, it's Kike. Rosario's playing second base. When they need a shortstop, I believe it was Kike who played shortstop. So Chris Taylor has become basically a full-time outfielder. He is the worst. His best ability is hitting lefties, and he's worse than Kike Hernandez and Ahmed Rosario against lefties. He's worse than David Peralta at hitting lefties, by the way, who's been very good against lefties. Chris Taylor in the last week is 4 for his last 21. If you've been watching, you know that those 4, one was like
a dribbler.
The ball that went over the pitcher's mound and dropped in front of second base and went for a single today. He had a ground ball single. He had a 68 mile an hour single. So he's not hitting the ball hard. He's in the 7th percentile for exit velocity, the 6th percentile for strikeout rate, the 5th percentile for expected batting average. And I just don't see what role Chris Taylor plays. So I think Michael Busch's bat, even if you don't know where to put him, is more valuable than whatever Chris Taylor provides. So that's my long-winded pitch of come postseason time. Do you think, AJ, there's any chance that a guy like Michael Busch could take Chris Taylor's spot on the postseason roster?
I have 2 answers to this. The upfront answer to your question is no. There's no chance. The honest answer is it should be, and I'll one up you. If JD Martinez is the starting DH against the lefty, if the pitcher that's coming on the mound is right-handed, Michael Busch is the starting DH.
Wow.
JD Martinez has proven 2 things. He can still mash, especially lefties, and his legs are made of glass, paper mache, and wet bathroom tissue. Michael Busch has done everything he can possibly do to prove that he belongs at the major league level. We've all been laughing, bewildered, mystified as to why they haven't called him up. And Chris Taylor is a Dodger hero, a playoff Dodger legend, but the writing has been on the wall. He picked up for like a few weeks and was very hot, and he hasn't been since. You rattled off the numbers. He hasn't been good at the plate, and I just don't know why you don't give Michael Busch some more leeway at the major league level. The trade deadline is over. Yeah. So what are we saving him up for?
Blake, I can't get to where AJ is at because Michael Busch hasn't done all of this is probably dependent upon him actually getting up to the majors when rosters expand. They only get 2 spots, but he will surely be one of those, I would guess, and actually hits. I can't get to a place where I'm taking JD Martinez out of the lineup, but do you think there's any chance that Michael Busch versus Chris Taylor is a battle for the final roster spot in the postseason?
Not really, only because I don't think they're going to give Busch the actual chance to earn that spot over Chris Taylor, like if they haven't done it already. They had a perfect opportunity with JD Martinez, but they decided to keep him on the roster doing nothing for 10 days instead of just putting him on the IL. Like, they had the perfect opportunity to give Michael Busch a trial run, and they just said, no, we don't want to do that. So I have no idea what their actual plan with him is and what they're thinking. So I don't actually see him getting on the roster, and I don't see him replacing anyone. Maybe September 1st, but even then it wouldn't totally shock me if they just call up Yanni just to be a bench player and like not give guys everyday play time. I still think it'll be Busch that gets called up on September 1st, but I'm just saying it wouldn't shock me if it's Yanni for clarity there. And yeah, Chris Taylor, like, he's one of the guys. He's a clubhouse guy. Like, the team loves him. Dave Roberts has trust in him, and he's going to start versus lefties. So I just don't see it make like any way that Bush actually comes up, especially with Bush hitting lefties. Like, I don't think they'd give him as a left-handed hitter the opportunity to hit lefties because they've been weird about that forever. So
Yeah,
I just don't really see it.
And to be clear, I don't think he would come in the Chris Taylor role of hitting against lefties. I think he would just be the random pinch hitter against righties, that he's a better option in that role. Because I don't think Chris Taylor's going to play serious time in the postseason. Like, again, I just think they're going to fill out the roster, the lineup with other guys. So interesting to watch. And again, September 1st, they can add 2 more guys to the roster. So do they put Michael Bush on there? Do they, if especially if the division continues to get out of hand, do they just let JD Martinez sit for a bit and give Michael Bush a 7 to 10 days of run at designated hitter or second base? Interesting to watch there. All right, we're going to switch gears here a little bit. This is something we like to do from time to time. If you're here exclusively for Dodgers talk, then thank you for joining us. We're going to do a little bit of a fun conversation. This came up in a text message thread, and I love the idea. And these 2 guys are the perfect 2 guys to have this conversation because they have maybe not what you would expect for the greatest food takes in the history of the world. And so what we're going to do, it's a classic draft, a snake draft, and it's going to be a fast food item draft. So the clarifying points here, it has to be a fast food restaurant. And I'm sure at some point a restaurant will get brought up that is debatable about whether it's fast food, but I'll let that person handle it when it comes to it. So fast food items, and it's items. So you're not drafting all of McDonald's. You're picking like the Big Mac as your favorite item. It could be breakfast. It could be dessert. It could be a main. It could be a side. You got options here. Okay. And so the way that it works is we randomized this. AJ was going to be first. He didn't want to pick first. He said the pressure was too much for him. So we're each going to pick 5, and then we're going to end with our most overrated food item. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to go first, and I happily took AJ's spot in first because this is the easiest slam dunk pick in the history of the world. The number 1 pick in the fast food item draft is a double-double animal style from In-N-Out. Slam dunk, no questions asked. That's what I've got as my number 1 pick. So AJ, I'll flip it over to you. You've got the number 1 pick, or the number 2 pick, excuse me. Go for it.
I was gonna do that as my number 1 pick, but I felt nobody would have believed me.
Fair.
I'm gonna take my number 2 favorite fast food item, the double Western from Carl's Jr.
Okay. I got a famous story of I tried to run a mile 2.5 hours after crushing a double Western my senior year, and I was in peak physical condition. I had just finished cross country. My goal was to break 5 minutes in the mile. And surprise here, I did not break 5 minutes in that mile. Started cramping about 2.5 laps in. So there we go. Okay, so the double Western is off the board. Blake, you've got back-to-back picks here. I can't wait for this. So go ahead.
Well, real quick, I want to preface this by saying, can we get the chat to answer if Little Caesars and Panda Express are fast food? Because I think all of us agree they are, but Jeff doesn't.
No,
And
I
he-
was iffy. I say no to Little Caesars. Little Caesars, I'm skeptical of because I never think of pizza as a fast food. I'm okay with Panda Express. It's not like in my definition of fast food, but when I thought about it, I was like, you know what?
So here's but I meant to say this before we got to Blake. I made my list with a place that has a drive-through, and a lot of Little Caesars in Tennessee where I lived had those.
Okay.
So I'm going to give Blake that technicality.
Sure.
I excluded places like Chipotle, Five Guys, because typically they're not fast food and don't have a drive-through. In case people are like, "Why didn't you pick why didn't you pick this?" And then I'm like, I didn't choose those because they don't qualify by price and by drive-through.
I think drive-through is the number 1 determining factor. I think it's a little gray when it gets to some of these other options, but for the sake of moving this along, Blake, go for it. So double Western and double are off the table. You go for it.
I'll take In-N-Out animal fries with my number 1 pick here. Now, I don't necessarily think they're the best item on the board, but since it's a draft, I don't want one of you stealing them. And then
no, it's a solid pick.
For my number 2 pick, I think I'm going to go with the cheesy gordita crunch from Taco Bell.
Oh my goodness. Blake and I kind of already had this conversation, so that's a devastating one because that was on my list. So, great pick. Animal style fries. we're going to do most overrated as our last one. It wasn't going to quite make overrated, but I'm just not like, I don't buy the animal fries hype. So that's my own thing. So AJ, you're up. Lots of things are off the board now. Animal style fries and the cheesy gordita crunch from Taco Bell. It's a great pick, Blake. I'm really bummed about that, but I've got good. My number 2 and 3 are still on the board. So we're feeling good. AJ, you're up.
I'm not going to do what I was going to do for my second pick because I'm kind of doing this like, okay, let me round out this meal. I've got a killer burger from Carl's, and now I need the GOAT of all fries, and that's McDonald's fries.
Okay, McDonald's fries is next on the list. That's a fair pick. I'm gonna zag here, and I'm going the dessert route. Give me the Dairy Queen Blizzard. That's going to be my number 2 pick. Just an absolute elite dessert.
Stole that from me.
Yeah, it's not even close. So we're going to go with that.
Good pick.
And then for my third one, because we've established the rules as they are, I'm going to go orange chicken from Panda Express. If that's counting as a fast food item, then give me the orange chicken from Panda Express. I'm mixing up my board. That was actually my third one is still sitting there, but we're going to see if it lasts till the next one. So AJ, you're back up. So I've got a double animal style, a DQ Blizzard, and orange chicken from Panda Express. Back to you, AJ.
First of all, I'm not going to lie. Those are great choices.
No. We all knew I was going to win this draft. I mean, if there were odds on who wins this draft, I was like minus 900 coming in.
The Dairy Queen Blizzard was like right under my next choice. So I'm going to have to zag here. Instead of completing my dessert with the meal, I'm going to have to go a different route. You knew this was coming eventually. Give me 2 Jack in the Box tacos.
I love it. Third, just way early in the draft. That's incredible. I like them. They're not in my top 10, but I respect the commitment to
They're fantastic.
Your heart. Yeah, I love it. Blake, you've got back-to-back picks here.
So I'm going with double desserts here because, for the record, I think desserts are like the easy, best things fast food restaurants have. Like, if you could only pick one thing from there, it's going to be dessert. Like, I'm not going for a burger. They have the dessert. Wow. So I'm going with the Taco Bell Cinnabon Delights and the Del Taco Cheesecake Bites.
Okay. I can't say I've had the Del Taco Cheesecake Bites. I think I've had the Taco Bell one. I just love Cinnabon. So Cinnabon itself is elite, but that's not really an option here. So, okay. So you're going double dessert. So you're 4 picks in. So AJ, you're up again.
Those are good. I haven't had Taco Bell in a long time, so I'm not going to say, Blake, those, like, I don't have them in recent memory, but they sound good.
Yeah.
All right. I can't have no desserts. So let's go classic. Give me a large chocolate Wendy's Frosty.
Okay. That's a good pick. Wendy's deserves love in this draft. I'm up for a back-to-back. Correct me if I'm wrong, Blake, because you're our guy here. Raising Cane's is on the table here as an option. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, they have a drive-through, and I'd consider them fast food.
Okay, so I'm going Raising Cane's chicken tenders. That's going to be my next pick. And then I'm going Popeye's chicken sandwich for my 4th pick. So we're going double chicken.
Do you have to pick the sauce from Cane's separately, though? Like, or are we getting the sauce included with the chicken?
I thought about that. We're just going to go Cane's chicken tenders, and we'll let the audience use their imagination on where we go from there. So I'm going that's my 4th. So AJ, you're back up for your 4th pick as I continue to destroy your board based on the look on your face. So you've got 2 more picks, and then Blake's got 2 more picks, and I've got 1 left.
That kind of threw me off. Because that was the chicken sandwich that I wanted to use if I'm not feeling a beef burger.
I can't wait for the graphic we're going to make and just the amount of just cascading love that I'm going to get for my picks in this draft my ego's going to need this tomorrow. So I want to say thank you to both of you in advance. But just know when you did that, like, you went for like the fan favorites. You didn't pick anything spice. Like fan favorites for a reason, AJ. Fan favorites for a reason.
All right. You're picking stat patters over winners. I understand. If I'm gonna, given the tirade we just went on, I'm gonna just go off the beaten path. I'm gonna get off the fan favorites. Sometimes I don't want a full, like, giant double burger. Sometimes I want something off, the dollar menu when they used to exist. They don't anymore. An underrated burger, one of the only things I like from this place, The Burger King, the Rodeo King. It's like a little barbecue burger.
Okay. I did not have the Rodeo King getting drafted in this, but I love it. I love it.
Isn't that
Blake?
like the same thing as your first pick though?
Yep.
The
He
Western
just got a
Bacon, like
smaller version of the Western. He went double Western, and this is like the half Western. So I love it. AJ's got a type, if you will. So I respect
I
it.
just went for random picks, man. At this point, just fill them up.
All right, Blake, you're up.
it's a toss up here for the last pick. I think I'm gonna go with the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich. Seems like a safe pick, and I don't think anyone's gonna argue with that one too much. So I think that's my fifth, right?
No, you got one more. We're coming back, right?
No, I think I did two, and then one.
That's already it, huh?
Yeah.
I think I've only got 4. Somebody's got to correct us here.
Well, yeah. Now it goes. Oh, I don't.
No, we've
yeah,
got
I
2.
don't know.
Yeah, we're coming back.
Okay. It's a tough choice here. Then I'll say McDonald's cookies for my final one. Those are really good. I think like if anyone's had them, I think they'll vouch for that. They're really underrated.
Okay. I mean, I in my mind, how many have you picked, Blake? Aren't you at 5 now?
I thought that was 6, but because I think I did two, and then 2 again.
Oh,
But
you might be right. We
can just go through one more time.
This round because we'll complete this and we'll figure out. We'll watch the tape. So he's going Chick-fil-A. AJ, you've got one more pick and I've got one more pick. Then.
Yeah, that's look. First of all, I did pick a fan favorite. McDonald's fries are the best-selling fries of all time.
True.
Someone took off the spicy Chick-fil-A sandwich that I was going to take. Appreciate that. So I'm just gonna have to go with another classic. No, I don't even like that damn thing though. So every now and again, I need breakfast. Give me an egg McMuffin with sausage.
Yeah, dang it. That was on my list. It's absolutely top of the food chain for breakfast.
Oh yeah.
So that was a great choice. That actually makes my last one easier because I was debating between 2. I see the people mentioning Tommy's. We're trying not to get super regional here.
I also don't have Tommy's. Yeah, exactly.
So I'll close it out. I'm going to go side, and this is the steal of the draft, but I'm going Carl's Jr. Crisp Cut fries with my final pick here. Just a fantastic, the best version of fries that you could get at any of these places. So I'm throwing that out there. Let's close out because it gets fun when we go the opposite way. Blake, I'll let you start. Give me your most overrated fast food item.
I feel like there's a few. Like I could say McDonald's fries. I could say the Whopper. I could say the Western Bacon. Like I'm not saying any of those are bad, but like if we're talking overrated, like give me the In-N-Out fries over the McDonald's fries all day.
Never.
Wow.
Never.
Like I'm not saying plain, but when you get the animal fries, like that blows McDonald's out of the water.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think I'll go with the McDonald's fries just for that reason.
I love it. Just for the memes. I love it, Blake. So he's going AJ.
Not for the memes. Like
most
the
overrated.
other option, like you have better options. Like give me the animal fries every day of the week.
I hear you. You're saying they're good, but they get too much hype. So I respect it. Blake, what do you got? Or excuse me, AJ, most overrated.
I feel like this isn't going to be met with a lot of hatred like the way that I thought it might be. But, like, I really don't like the Whopper. Every time I've ordered a Whopper from BK, it's a mouthful of, like, raw onion.
I like the Whopper. It was on my top. It was on my list. Didn't get drafted, but that's fine. That's fine. I get it. I want to go McGriddles here because Blake loves them, and I think they're terrible. But I'm actually I'll zag a little bit more, and I'll maybe go a little bit more mainstream. McDonald's chicken nuggets, overrated. In my estimation, like I would get like chicken nuggets from just about anywhere else before I would get McDonald's. So
I think that's a good take.
Yeah. I agree, but I think the sauce McDonald's has is really good, and that's kind of what carries them. So like people just get them just to cover them in sauce. So
yeah. You want me to put McGriddles? Would it make you feel better, Blake, if on the chart we put McGriddles on most overrated?
No, because if I had another pick, McGriddles would have been them, and even over my last one, I would have considered it. Like, how can you not like eggs on pancakes as a breakfast sandwich? Like
easily.
That's the best combo there is.
That has a syrup nugget in the middle.
Yeah, it's amazing. They're not dry like the McMuffins and biscuits.
Yeah. Well, the three things that I did not get picked on my list that I would have picked were the sourdough jack from Jack in the Box. Love a good sourdough jack. The Whopper. I like the Whopper. And then Wendy's chicken nuggets were on my list of things I would have taken. I think
The
Wendy's has
spicy
got the
ones,
best.
right?
Yeah, Wendy's has got the best nuggets. So
The spicy nuggets from Wendy's are legit. My sleeper that didn't make it onto the list because, and I have kids too, so if we go to Dairy Queen, we're getting ice cream, right?
yeah.
The Dairy Queen flamethrower burger is legitimately good.
Okay. I didn't even know, like growing up, I didn't even know Dairy Queen made food until I got to college. Like 100% of the time I went to Dairy Queen, I was getting ice cream, and I didn't even know they made food. But to your point, it's not bad. I've got it ahead of some other things. So there you go. All right. I know we probably lost some people with our fast food draft, which is fine. We appreciate the folks still around. We will take some questions now if you want to get back to baseball, or if you want to fire off some food takes. All caps question at the top of at the beginning of your post, please, and we'll fire through some. So if you've got Dodgers questions about guys that are back, some of the takes we had as far as baseball goes. I know the Double Dell cheeseburger. Moreno's going to be pissed at us that didn't get drafted. I can see the text message coming.
He doesn't like it as much anymore because they changed the bread or something. That's what he always says about it.
We don't have them out here in PA, and it's been so many years that I don't remember what they taste like.
Yeah, I've never had one. I see Foster Freeze too. I almost
Those
went
are
Foster
good.
Freeze. Little root beer like freeze or whatever they're called. Those are amazing, but felt a little too small.
I don't even know if there's a Foster Freeze or a Dairy Queen around me. Like I have no clue where the closest one is. So
yeah,
the only Foster Freeze we used to have was when I grew up in NorCal and we'd drive to LA like on the 5, like right before the Grapevine. I'm pretty sure there was one. Maybe someone in the comments can confirm that for me.
I also see somebody wants to fight me because they love McDonald's nuggets. So, there we go. It's nothing like a good food debate if we don't have people pissed off. Okay, baseball question here. Michael asks, did Friedman screw up by not getting a lefty reliever at the deadline? Ryan Yarbrough is a lefty. So does he count here, Blake?
I think he does. They've only used him as a reliever. I think he means more of like a 1-inning high leverage lefty guy. So, I mean, I think they're happy with Caleb Ferguson in that role. And while it would be nice to have another one, I don't think it's a huge need. Alex Vesey has shown some flashes of upside, and he's been really good in the past. But really, I think any team would just be happy to have one really good lefty reliever, and the Dodgers do have that already with Ferguson. So I would have liked to see them add at least one more reliever, whether it's righty or lefty, but I don't think it was like their biggest need or anything.
Yeah. And am I old? When do players on the 60-day IL have to be counted on the 40-man? Is that after the season ends? Yes, it's after the season ends. I believe it's like right after the season ends. Is that right, Blake?
I'm not sure the exact day, but it's pretty soon they have to.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of guys on the 60-day IL, in case you've forgotten. Obviously, some guys are immediately out of contract as well, so some spots will open up because of free agency. Derek wants to know, AJ, I'll ask this to you. Is it possible that Bush is still in the minors? They want to keep his trade value high for the offseason. Is that the reason that the Dodgers have kept him down, possibly?
So my initial response to that would be no, but I'm running out of reasons that they have him down there otherwise. So I guess maybe it's not like a terrible question, honestly. But realistically, probably not. I'm sure they have some other reasons, whether or not the reasons are something that they want to disclose to the public. Is something else. Maybe they really believe in, maybe they honestly God believe in him in like keeping his development going. I mean, I think the bread is fully baked. He's developed, but sure, it's possible, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got to figure out a place to put him defensively. I think they care a lot about defense, and they don't really have an answer there, even if he looked good in a small sample size at third and threw a guy out at home from left field last night. So I really think it's part of it.
I do think looking ahead next year, you kind of have to consider they have David Peralta as a free agent, Jason Hayward as a free agent, Max Muncy could be a free agent depending on what they do with his option. So they have like some room. JD Martinez is a free agent. So he could fit in better next season, and I think they just didn't want to kind of sell low or pay like the crazy trade prices this year for what they could have got. Like you probably would have had to include him in a Giolito deal with how his trade was, and I don't think they would have been comfortable doing that. So I think it was just kind of a lot of things where the value didn't match up. They have a really full roster right now. He could still make an impact in the offseason. or next year, depending on what they do in the offseason.
Yeah.
And if they do end up filling those holes in the offseason, then he could be a trade piece then. So there's just a lot of things to consider with him, I think.
Yeah. IV, this is an interesting point. None of us took anything from Starbucks, which could have been a fast food option, I suppose, if anyone wanted to get weird and get a drink from Starbucks. But have any of you tried the ham and Swiss croissant from Starbucks? Best breakfast meal item in the game. I actually don't think I've tried that one. The turkey bacon one is kind of my go-to when I'm at Starbucks. AJ, have you tried the ham and Swiss?
I have. My wife really likes Starbucks, and I'm a coffee snob. I just don't care for Starbucks very much. Like I really like quality homemade or small brewed coffee. I'm not going to say that sandwich was bad. It was fine. I didn't not enjoy it, but I remember it was like $5 almost for the sandwich. So it's like, nothing's cheap anymore. So it's not a bad question. It's not bad. It's fine.
Okay, Blake, rapid fire here. Do you think Freddie Freeman is more hurt than he says? Gets hit on the knee yesterday, comes out of the game, reportedly was sitting in Dave Roberts' chair when he got out of the press conference as if to say, hey, Dave, I'm playing tomorrow, just so you know. Do you think there's anything to it? Freddie killed a 10-leg same-game parlay for me. I hit 9 of the 10. I needed one freaking hit from Freddie Freeman. The Rockies come in, they intentionally walk the guy, and then he strikes out. Devastating. So it has to be because of injury, right, Blake?
I don't think he's more hurt than he says. I don't think Freddie would like risk the team to keep his own streak alive or anything. So if he feels fine, I trust him to know his body well enough to not try and play through anything too major or anything.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some more rapid fire ones. Michael wants to know, AJ, will Almonte be back with the Dodgers or will he be let go? He's still got some, Yency Almonte still got some team control left, but obviously has struggled this season. He's got 2 more years of arbitration left. I don't know what he's got. I can look up how many option years he has left. But Blake, do you think there's a chance that Almonte, he has no options, so he can't be sent down? Do you think there's any chance that Almonte is coming to the end of his time with the Dodgers?
I think there's always a chance just for any reliever, but they'll probably keep him to next season and see how he does and go from there.
Yeah. AJ, do you think Roberts will be fired if he does another postseason blunder with the bullpen?
No.
Okay.
I think it's okay to be like in the middle about Dave Roberts. I think it's okay to say in the playoffs he's made some questionable at very, very best choices with the bullpen. But I also think it's okay to say this year he's managed a team very, very well. Low key in the past week, he has had some Dave Roberts masterclass moves. And he's a guy, like, the clubhouse believes in him, that the players line up behind him. They have faith in him. They love him. No, I don't think so. Like, he'd have to do something just completely put a position player pitching in a 1-run game kind of thing. Some kind of drug-induced haze type choice for that to ever happen. So I don't see that happening. The organization clearly believes in Dave. So no, I don't see it happening.
Blake?
No, and for 2 reasons. The first one is because there's not a single manager in baseball who's not going to make poor decisions in a game. You could hire anyone you want, any choice, whoever you think is going to be the best, and they're going to make mistakes because at the end of the day, baseball is hard and players aren't always going to perform like you expect. So for that reason, they're not going to try and replace him just for that. And for the second and more important reason, look at what the Padres and White Sox are doing this year.
Mets.
Their clubhouses are complete jokes, complete messes. Juan Soto basically said they're giving up in games. The White Sox, their players wanted to leave before games are over and before
allegedly,
Blake. On days they're not playing, they want to leave. You can see how bad things can go when a manager isn't actually doing his job. So to have someone who's actually controlling the clubhouse that players respect and want to play for is the single most valuable thing a manager can do. And Dave Roberts has won a lot, and there's a reason for that. They've had a good team, but Roberts is also doing his job. Like the Mets had a good team this year too, and they're very bad. The Padres had a very good team too, and they're very bad. And both of their managers are not great. So I think just that value Roberts brings alone is keeping him in his job, like for that reason.
I mean, all the people who crapped on how bad this Dodgers team was 3 months ago, how bad their offseason was, how bad their trade deadline was, and they're 8.5 games up. They have the second biggest lead of any division leader in all of Major League Baseball and the third best record. So you can't say that they screwed up the trade deadline and they screwed up the offseason and their bullpen sucks and they didn't do enough and also be pissed at the manager when the team is actually performing well. So that's my thought there. A couple more rapid fire ones. Ederico, I like this one. He said, last week, someone asked which team scares you in October. I'll switch it up and ask which team do you want to see in October? So looking at the standings, we've got the Braves, Brewers, and Dodgers as the division leaders. Currently, you've got the Phillies, the Giants, and the Marlins as the three teams that are leading the wild card, and then quickly followed by the Cubs and Reds a half game back, and then the Diamondbacks. Blake, I'll let you go first on this one of the teams that I just mentioned, and I'll include into the Diamondbacks because they're 2.5 games back, and then it jumps up to like 5.5. But is there a team in there that you most want to see?
Off the top of my head, it's probably the Cubs.
Yeah.
I don't think they're very talented to begin with. They decided to buy because they went on a nice run against really bad teams, and I just don't think they have much there. Like Stroman's their ace, and he's been regressing. Like their best hitter is Cody Bellinger, and he's been having a great year, and we know what he's capable of, but I think the Dodgers would probably know how to exploit his weaknesses a bit more. So I just don't think the Cubs have too much like that I'd be scared of overall.
Yeah, for me, it's the Cubs and the Diamondbacks would be the other team. Losing to the Diamondbacks doesn't scare me in the same way that from an emotional perspective, losing to the Giants would scar me forever. But I don't think the Diamondbacks are very good. So I would go Cubs, Diamondbacks. AJ, anybody we're missing there?
No, I was going to say Cubs. Their best pitcher, like Blake said, has been Stroman and Justin Steele. And they don't – like Steele's been good, don't get me wrong. But they don't strike me with enough fear, especially in the lineup you have Stroman and Steele. That's all they got.
Yeah. There you go. Well, hey, everybody, we appreciate you joining us. We'll wrap up the show there again. Be sure if you're new to this, check out our podcast. Apple, Spotify, Google, search for DodgerHeads. All the content we put out here on YouTube, the longer form stuff we throw on the podcast version. We're trying to grow that. So even if maybe you're not a huge podcast person, if you could go over, follow, rate, review, that would be a huge help. Again, Apple, Spotify, Google, whatever you use, just search for DodgerHeads, follow. It doesn't hurt you, but it helps us out. So that would be great. If you're new to YouTube, please subscribe and ring the notification bell down below as well. And of course, this is all presented by DodgerBlue.com. You can see AJ and Blake's work writing on DodgerBlue.com. So make sure you check that out as well. That is AJ Gonzalez and Blake Williams. Again, the Dodgers, perfect week. 8 wins in a row, 12 of their last 13, 8.5 game lead in the division. So we've got the broom here to represent the perfect week, and the Dodgers back-to-back sweeps. So there we go. Again, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your night. And as always, go Dodgers.